Israel regularly comes up as a very happy country in the World Happiness Report, but to many, it seems surprising, as media reports show that Israel is mostly involved in conflict and tension, including the long-standing Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Despite all the problems that Israel has, how does it rank as a very happy country? Today, I'll try to solve that puzzle as I'm joined by Israeli academic Dr. Pninit Russo Netzer. She's a senior lecturer, researcher, author, and a speaker who has published scholarly journal articles, chapters, and books in the fields of positive and existential psychology, well-being, wholeness, positive change and growth, and meaning in life. She's the head of the education department at Achba Academic College in Israel and head of the academic training program for logotherapy at Tel Aviv University, and also the head of the Compass Institute for the Study and Application of Meaning in Life. Dr. Pninit, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thanks. So I will try to say it in Hebrew now, and then you tell me how I sound. Is it Buchim Habaim La Podcast?
Wow! Congratulations! Yeah, exactly.
I was checking it on Google Translate just a few minutes ago, and I thought, okay, I will try to surprise you by saying it in Hebrew.
Wow! Yeah, you really surprised me. You're excelling languages. Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, so today's discussion will be about happiness and specifically Israeli happiness and also meaning in life, which is something you specialize in. I want to know about the Israeli happiness. In the World Happiness Report, we have seen that Israel regularly ranks among the countries that have very high levels of happiness. Now, my first question, do you think Israel's high happiness ranking is correct, considering that Israel is mostly involved in conflict, tension, and dispute, as we see in the media often?
Yeah. So yeah, Israel's high levels of happiness at first glance may seem odd. The top-ranked countries have reputations as peaceful, quiet places, and Israel is, as you said, intense and vibrant place, tensions over its borders. Citizens are subject to frequent terror attacks, existential threats. But when we take a closer look and a deeper look on how we tend to think about the concept of happiness, we may discover some other layers, I would say. We usually see happiness as a subjective, positive feeling of being in a good mood. But it would be better to understand the high levels of happiness among Israelis. We need to start with how the creators of the World Happiness Report define happiness. They measure life evaluation as a whole rather than a short-term positive emotions. And life evaluations provide the most informative measure for international comparisons between countries because they capture the quality of life in a more complete and stable way than emotional reports based on daily experiences. And indeed, we know that various studies suggested the paradoxical effect that the more individuals value happiness in the short term, the more they pursue it for its own sake, the less likely they are able to attain it. And this is due to placing excessive value on happiness, on setting unrealistically high standard for happiness. They may cause fear of measuring up to all of these expectations. And an alternative and more effective way to enhance well-being and happiness than overemphasizing the pursuit of happiness is consciously choosing habits and routines, structures and frameworks that hold deep values and make up our everyday life. And this is especially important given as you specialize in positive psychology, you may know the phenomena of hedonic adaptation, which is the tendency, right, to habituate to positive and negative life circumstances and experiences. And we see this idea deeply rooted in the origins of Judaism, which treats happiness as something that should be practiced, that should be cultivated through conscious decision, a determined attitude to focus on the blessings in our lives, no matter how challenging the situation we are facing. And also, it is something that's really built in the community life, especially among relatively tight-knit communities as part of the society, and a strong social fabric where people care not only about their own futures, their own well-being, but also about the collective and come together to affect positive change and sustained and cultivated through mutual practices and rituals. And I would say that interestingly related to the intensity of life in Israel, this year, a new global survey was added to the happiness rating. in which the sense of balance between the areas of life, the peace, harmony, and the sense of calm of the residents of various countries were examined. And Israel was ranked among the 10 lowest countries in terms of how much residents experience calm in their lives. Unsurprisingly, right? However, when they were asked what kind of life would you prefer, a calm life or an exciting life, Israel is about 45%, which means that although Israelis are very low in the sense of calm and serenity in their lives, still less of half of them would prefer a calm life. So they're used to the living on the edge, I would say, and an intense and vibrant and exciting life, which also have, of course, a downside. But overall, I would say that Israel has a stable economy, a long life expectancy, a subsidized healthcare, strong social and family framework that provides a sense of community and connection. Friends or family are really an important part of Israeli life, quality time with them, and also a strong social network, which is also increasingly emphasizing values of innovation and creativity, entrepreneurial, and high levels of social solidarity. So I would say that overall, if we think about the high levels even of some of the communities within Israel, religious affiliation for both Jews and Muslims, this means that daily life often revolves around relationship. And we know that relationship is one of the most, I would say, predictors of well-being. This is one of the main focus, I would say, that this overall picture that if we take a closer look, we can see.
Yeah, I understand. And I was reading several articles published in many different newspapers, both in Israel and also in other countries. You have the newspaper, how do you pronounce it? Haaretz.
Haaretz, yeah, Haaretz.
Okay, Haaretz. And also there is the Jewish Chronicle. I think it's published from Israel. And also there are other newspapers. So I was reading several articles on Israeli happiness, because this discussion is coming up, I think, lately in the recent times, because Israel has been ranking, among the top countries in the World Happiness Report. And all those articles mostly emphasize what you have just said. Especially they emphasized the value of family and friends and, the collectivist nature of the society. Because in Israel, you have a strong emphasis on families and friends. You guys are very close to the parents. The relationship between Israeli parents and children, they're very close. And also when children grow up, they still maintain that close relationship with their parents. And one of the articles said, Israel is not very big, it's a small country, which means when adults, when they have maybe left their home, they have left their nest and living elsewhere, but still during the holidays, they can go and visit their parents and maintain then close relationships. And that explains why, in contrast to the Western countries, people in Israel are happier, because, in Israel, in the Western countries, it's mostly about alienation and also individualism. But in Israel, you have the collectivist nature, and also you have the influence of family and friends who are part of your daily life. And this continues since the childhood up until, I think, the death, when you become old. Yeah. So this is actually one of the main reasons. And also, I was reading an article. It was written in Hebrew, so I had to use the Google Translate. And
you're hardworking.
in that article, you also mentioned two main reasons. One of the reasons that you just described is that the strong family values, social solidarity, and a collectivist society. And now I want to move on to the second reason in that article that you described. It's a sense of meaning. You said this is another key reason of Israeli happiness. You said, I don't know if it's the correct translation, but that's what Google Translate gave me. You say daily tensions in Israel are the motivation to live a full life and also be part of something bigger that gives Israelis a sense of meaning. So can you explain how Israelis feel this sense of meaning in their lives and how that gives them greater happiness? Because you specialize in meaning in life. So I want to know from you.
Yeah, actually, we had about 1 year ago, we had a book published by Oxford that the focus was the search for meaning in the Israeli scene, which is was kind of regardless of the happiness report, it was very interesting to take a closer look on the different narratives of meaning. I would just add to your previous question before I go to this one, that we also need to remember that this happiness report related to 2020 and 2022, which is also a COVID era. And this is So this is also where Israel's high ranking could also be explained by a strong economic recovery following the coronavirus pandemic, and also it was a world-leading COVID-19 vaccination campaign, which has seen more than half of the population receive a shot. This is also, I wanted to, to explain the full context, and this is something that we also need to take into consideration. But following up on your question, so other than the social support category, which we know that when people feel they have someone to count on in times of trouble, and we know that life satisfaction and happiness is more about our relationship and social support than any specific location where we live. So as you mentioned, this is a very tight-knit country, a small-sized country, so we feel connected all times. But also, as you mentioned, the idea that I see very clearly, the idea of feeling a sense of meaning in life, a sense of being a part of something greater than ourselves. This is something that we see when we take a closer look at what meaning actually means. What is the meaning of meaning? We know from the literature that meaning is kind of it comprised of three, I would say, components. The first one is about comprehension, which is the cognitive component, the ability to make sense and to feel that our life experiences weave together into a coherent whole. We feel a sense of connection, a sense of legacy, a sense that we are part of something greater than ourselves, a sense of tradition. The second ingredient is the purpose, which is the motivational component, the degree that we feel directed and motivated towards valued life goals. We feel that our lives that we have something to get up in the morning for, I would say. And the third ingredient is a sense of mattering or significance, which is the existential or emotional ingredient. And this is the sense that our existence is significant and valued, that we are not transparent, that we are being seen, that we are visible, that we can act. And if we take all of these ingredients, we see that here in Israel, when life is not certain, when you have an existential threat, you have a sense of urgency to live life to the fullest. And it pushes in different directions. It's also called the startup nation because we see a lot of innovations here and creativity and sense of, thinking of how we can, make a full life in this very short term of life. You feel you feel that you're living on the edge, other than maybe other countries where more peaceful and quiet. But at the same time, it makes you feel that you want your existence to mean something. You want to find meaning. And this is something that kind of, I would say, connects all of those dots together. A sense of belonging. We have a long tradition, history, legacy. You see it everywhere when you walk through the country. You see history. You walk through history. So this is a sense that you're part of something greater than yourself. There's also a sense of purpose, a sense of where we're heading in terms of future. This is something that in the current political situation, I would say that people are going to the streets and protesting and being active. This is part of sense of purpose and a sense of existential value. You feel you matter. You feel that your voice matters. So overall, I would say that despite complexities, tensions, and different parts of that, people feel that they can express themselves. This is also something very unique to Israeli culture, the idea of chutzpah, if you know the word, right? You express yourself.
Okay.
So it's kind of not holding back on your emotions, saying, feeling that you have a sense of freedom to express yourself, of saying things that maybe in other countries will be, impolite. You say things that you feel that matter. So you're not holding back on your emotions. This is also something that you feel that you're being heard. And this is also something that contributes to a sense of meaning and purpose, and a sense of belonging and connection. And you're willing to fight for it. So we also see this sense of urgency in different levels of being, of having a sense of a reason to get up in the morning. I would say this is something that it's really hardwired. And also going back to the sense of, I would give another word, I think it's really interesting. When we think about the solidarity, I would, the word firgun in Hebrew, which is untranslatable. There isn't an English word for it, which is really interesting. It exemplifies the centrality of social connection and solidarity, which means it describes a genuine, unselfish delight or pride in the accomplishment of another person, which is something really kind of a generosity of the spirit, unselfish joy that I'm happy, I'm really happy for your success, which is, I think, in the individualistic sense of the world where we live today, right? In the FOMO and competition and social comparison, this is something that's really unique in terms of really seeing each other. So this is, I think, both of these ideas, the sense of meaning, a sense of purpose, a greater, a sense of belonging to something beyond myself and self-interest. I would say even self-transcendent in a way. Even for secular people, it doesn't have to be religious. It's a sense that I matter in the overall fabric of society. But at the same time, when I don't agree with something, I can fight for it. I can, get my voice heard and be active in terms of changing the situation.
Yeah, I get it. So now I have an interesting question that just popped into my mind. Let's say I moved to Israel from Bangladesh. So what do you think? Would I feel the same kind of meaning in life as you guys do as Israelis? What do you think?
I think so. I think Israel is a country of a multicultural country. It's a country of many people from around the world, from different cultures. So I would say that definitely this is something that I think pretty quickly you get into the sense of being vibrant and intense sense of wanting to accomplish things, wanting to be a part of something. Yeah, I would say definitely, because the idea of being not alone, I would even say, we have so many initiatives in different, you can post in social media that you have a birthday, or you have a funeral, or you have, I don't know, and you're celebrating, and people will come, even, strangers will come. So you won't be alone. So the sense of not being alone, not being isolated is a very strong idea here. And again, because of the small size of the country, people are feeling all the time they're being surrounded, and I would say the high tempo of life also contributes to a sense of being a part of something. But of course, it's an interesting question. I need to think about it more.
Because that just popped into my mind, because when you're talking about the social solidarity and, the social connections, that is also very common in my country. In Bangladesh, we are also very collectivist in nature. So we know who our neighbors are. If you live in a neighborhood, in an area, you actually know a lot of people. You talk to strangers, you go to shops, you say, hi, how are you? Okay. But when I was in Finland, this is not the culture. They are very extremely individualistic. So they don't even know their neighbors who is living next door. So they are so individualistic. So that's why I was thinking, like, when you were talking about this family and social relationships, social connection, that also exists in my country. But when you talked about the meaning in life, that part of the Israeli aspect of life. So I was thinking because I can't say with a strong emphasis that exists in my country. Maybe for some people, they have their own kind of meaning in life. But if you think about the general kind of course, there exists a general sense of meaning in life in Bangladesh. But I was thinking about whether it is as strong as it is in Israel, as you are describing, because I think it's a bit different. And when you are in Israel, when you follow Judaism and when you live in Israel, that you have that meaning in life aspect in your life, in your everyday life. And as you said, because you guys live in existential threat. And I was reading in one of the articles that also explains why Israel is so, because they know they have a threat, so they want to enjoy their life, and they want to find meaning in their existence because they have this threat. But anyway, this is my next question. If Israel did not have such strong social and family bonding, and it was an individualistic country like the West, do you think Israelis would have been less happy than they are now?
I think, yeah, I think we know from different research that this is something that really contributes to a sense of alienation and loneliness when you feel, sometimes you feel that you don't have something to get up in the morning for. This is again the connection with the sense of meaning. And we also know that since the Israeli family is more resilient and has disintegrated less than the institutions and family in Europe and the United States, when you feel that it also remained a major system of identity and support. Again, the geographical closeness. And so I think this high premium on both close friends and family, and again, the culture that cultivates rituals and practices, because it's not just about saying it's important, but actually creating rituals, habits, and frameworks to be able to practice that. And we know from a 70-year study in Harvard, which concluded that close relationship keep us happier, healthier in terms of our brain, in terms of our ability to recover, both in terms of mental and physical challenges. And we know that countries that have come out of natural disasters have displayed, I would say even an example for that. There was a study that compared the reactions of New Yorkers to the September 11 terror attack. You remember this? With the reactions of Israelis in wars or terror attacks here. And there were high
Israelis recovered faster than that. I think you mentioned that already.
Yeah, exactly.
Israelis recovered faster.
They recover, and they show more post-traumatic growth symptoms rather than post-traumatic syndrome because they're more resilient in terms of social cohesion and, again, a sense of meaning, which we know it's a predictor of both well-being and recovery and facing trauma and distress. So I would say, going back to your question, when we have rituals that connect us, it can be meeting every Friday for a dinner together. That's, again, for secular and religious people, the same. Meeting in terms of different festivals, rituals every week. And this is something that protects us, we know. When you compare that to loneliness and alienation, for example, in Scandinavian countries, as you mentioned, that we know they're really high in happiness rankings, but at the same time, they're struggling against high alcoholism and suicide rates and
loneliness
and depression. Yeah. So this is a sense that you feel that someone cares for you, that, whatever happens, this is something that you can rely on, is something that I would say protects you from in the everyday intense life. So this is something that we know today more than ever before, that you feel that you are part of a greater scheme of things, contributes to both your sense of meaning and a sense of being connected. And I would go back to your question that happiness is a byproduct of meaning. I would say that happiness cannot be pursued. It needs to ensue, in the words of Viktor Frankl. So this is something that we cannot pursue. We want to buy more and get more, and then we go back to an endless cycle of high intensity. You get a high, and then you get used to it, and again a big sense of existential vacuum, of emptiness. But once you have things that beyond yourself, a bigger cause, a bigger purpose, family, friends, people that that are part of your tribe, I would say, in a way, even strangers, it feels like you're a part of something Even when you're fighting for something, it doesn't have to be all happy all the time. Again, this is a stable sense of overall life evaluation. It's not about being happy and smiling. We know that, from recent research that toxic positivity is just smiling all the time. When you feel that you want to cry, it's not healthy too. So being able to express all of the range of emotions in a way that people can hold, and at the same time feeling that you're part of that, even if life is not a picnic, and even if you have tensions and disasters and pressure, you can hold it better and be more resilient.
I get it. So now give us some tips to find meaning in our lives and cultivate that through daily activities, because, I'm pretty sure that many people know about these concepts, but they cannot practice it in their daily life. So they need some tips, they need some helps or suggestions from people like you who are experts.
Yeah, thank you. So I would say that I'll give two ideas, I would say. The first one is going back to the 3 components of meaning in life, and try to really treat them as a map or equalizer, right? That you can turn up the volume. How can I find a purpose that really means something to me? Something that doesn't come from the outside, something that I chose. I call that internal compass. We see that in our studies with adolescents, that they have a sense of internal compass, that they know to choose better their life choices and actions and activities. So find something that you really like, something that it's worth getting up in the morning for. And this is something that doesn't come for us from the outside. We don't get that from our parents. This is something we need to explore. Just like identity, meaning develops through 2 central mechanisms. One is experiment or exploration, trying new things, explore new things, and commitment. So find a purpose, something to get up in the morning for. It can be very small. The second part is about feeling a sense of connection, connect the dots, a sense of narrative, a sense of a story that you feel that your life is going through something. Connect your past, present, and future. And a sense of being validated, validate others, really see them. In a world of distractions, in a world of fast-paced, we don't always stop to really see each other. And there are meaning potentials everywhere in every minute. I always give an example that sometimes you can go back to your home and, I don't know, hug your child, which for so many people is a source of meaning in life, but you can look behind his back to the piles of laundry and dishes and emails, and it's a meaningless experience. But once you're there, you're really there, you're present, it's a different way of experience. So meaning is tied up in a sense of connection and mindfulness. And I would give another idea, another map, which is the 3 pathways to meaning in life that logotherapy kind of suggests. The first one is the experiential pathway. What we get from the world in terms of experiences and life gifts can be love, relationship, can be an inspiration, nature, art, poetry, music. This enables us to be in connection with life. So if we ask people about your meaningful experiences, most people would say nature. Most people would say a deep relationship. This is something that we need to cultivate on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. Just, self-monitoring, the end of the day. What was meaningful to me today, for me today? Was it something that relates to experience? The second pathway is the creative pathway, which means what we give to the world in terms of our unique footprints through creation, taking action, volunteering, acts of kindness, contribution. It can be even the smallest thing that we can do to put our footprint in the world, something that we can do that kind of exemplifies our values. And the third one, the highest of the 3, is the attitudinal pathway. It's the choice of attitude towards unavoidable suffering and pain, or the things that we cannot change. And this is redefining the way we approach or treat situations that we cannot change or out of our control, to find new opportunities, possibilities, to find meaning, even in suffering, even in challenging situations. Viktor Frankl calls it the triumph of the human spirit, or our ability to transcend beyond conditions and to see the meaning potential there. And this is maybe remind some of the viewers the Japanese idea of kintsugi, which I really like. The power of transforming brokenness into beautiful masterpieces, or being able to see the beauty in our fragility. This is something that I think in a world of the pursuit of perfect, we forget being whole. It's a different way, a different concept, a different way of living. And this goes back to the toxic positivity, when we pretend that we're happy all the time, where essentially we want people to validate each other and to feel whole. And one last thing I would even add, that other than pursuing happiness for its own sake, which feels like a snowball that, you know, keeps melting, because it's when I finish each project, when I get married, when I finish my degree, when I retire, there's always something, right? A peak that I should get there. And once I get there, kind of it melts down when we know, of course, the negativity bias and hedonic adaptation. But then another alternative, as I mentioned earlier, is rituals and habits. It's the way we structure our day. And my research shows that people who prioritize meaning through their actions tend to have a greater sense of happiness, gratitude, coherence, positive emotions, life satisfaction, less negative emotions, less anxiety, less depression. Because instead of wishing for a more meaningful life or more happy life or a happier life, a more well-being, we need to actively pursue it in terms of how we structure our days. And, you know, there's a beautiful saying by Annie Dillard. She said, how we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives. It doesn't happen to us. It's not that one day we'll start to live a more meaningful life. It's how we're spending our days and how we consciously choosing to structure our 24 hours, our day to day, how we organize and maximize our well-being through the conscious choices. How we, I would say, the big stones. Do you know the tale that if we start with the big stones in our lives, the values, the things that really matter to us, and we prioritize them in the way we structure our to-do list, then we have time for all of the little sand and all of the urgent. But we start with the important. So even just asking yourself, when you know what's your why, what's important to you, that requires, of course, self-awareness, because as we say, it doesn't come for us from the outside. This is something we need to discern and understand our meaningful moments, what's important to us, what's our internal compass. But when we know that, it's not enough. We need to really spend and allocate time and energy. This is the most valuable resources that we have in our short term of life here on Earth, I would say. So how will we spend our last 24 hours, our week, our year? How much of your calendar reflects your personal values or sources of meaning in life? Where do we spend our time? If we value our family, do we translate that to spending more time with loved ones? If we value self-development or personal growth, do we translate these values into action, to, I don't know, listening to inspiring talks, to your podcast, to cultivating skills of interest? And one last thing I would say, even the idea of a meaning mindset, going through our days and see, what does it mean to surprise myself? When was the last time that I did something for the first time? Being open to new experiences with curiosity and engagement, this is something that enables us to see and discern what's really important to us, to see the values, even in mundane tasks, even in things that are challenging. Again, going back to context and going back to intense life, if we see the values that are still important to us, that we can hold, see opportunities, even, I don't know, taking care of a child or taking care of elderly parent, we can remember to ask ourselves, why is this important to me? Which value lies in this task? And once we have a sense of meaning, this contributes to our sense of happiness, to our well-being, vitality, longevity. It has a lot of benefits. And of course, on the other side, it helps us recover from crisis and adversity.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's,
Thank, thank you, Dr. Nidhi. I was like, I was listening and I was thinking that if I could preach to people all around the world what you were saying, the meaning in life, because I'm almost running out of time, so I'll make it short. I have been doing this podcast for like 1.5 years. And every single day when I get up, I find a sense of meaning, I find a purpose that is
um,
bigger than myself, that I'll talk about happiness. I will spread the message of happiness from around the world to people around the world who don't know much about many different countries. Maybe they only know about their own country. So this gives a sense of meaning and purpose. And I have personally felt that my life satisfaction, my level of happiness, as I have felt it personally, has really gone up. So when you have something meaningful in your life and when you pursue it with all the vigor and all the motivation and all the strength that you have, it really, really makes you happy. So there is no question about it. I am the living proof from your theory, the meaning in life, that if you have
yeah.
something that is far better than hedonic adaptation or, blindly chasing happiness or materialistic gains and growth, that gives you, if you have a sense of meaning that comes from within, from your heart, from your mind, so you will be happier, and there is no doubt about it. So thank you, Dr. Nitin. Maybe we will have another session where we will talk more about this meaning in life. But today I have to finish this episode. And thank you for coming on my podcast, because, I really wanted to do this podcast and I wanted to tell the people around the world the story of Israeli happiness, because there is not much information about this
I
thing on the
know.
internet. And
And thank you
especially,
for mission.
thank
Thank you
you.
for your mission. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Thank you.
It's so
Thank you.
innovative, and I can see your passion. This is something that we
Thank you.
thank
Thank
you
you.
for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Okay, Dr. Nit, goodbye. Have a nice
Thank
time.
you.
Bye bye.
Good night. Have a great day.